Hi, I'm Dana, and I've spent a lot of my life trying to figure out little ways of trying to just make myself feel a little bit better. Because I spend a lot of life not feeling very good. I have a lot of anxiety, I get very sad, all of my emotions feel very big, I get very overwhelmed a lot. So it's vital and very nice for me to just feel a little bit better. And I feel like that's quite common for the autistic community. And over the last couple of weeks, honestly, if anything, this is a fairly recent development for me. I've realised that one of the things that really makes me feel a lot better is sensory seeking behaviour. There's a lot of very small ways that I'm able to just sort of improve my day-to-day sort of sensory experience of the world as an autistic person that makes me feel a lot more positive mentally, makes me feel more comfortable in my sensory and general autistic self. For me, a lot of bad sensory things and my sensory issues, they just make me feel off, they make me feel weird, they make me feel not right. And these are little ways that I sort of reset to either feel right again or feel actively good and actually feel an actual positive emotion. But I've been struggling to fully identify what things are sensory seeking behaviours and what's going to actually make me feel good and what I'm going to enjoy. So I thought doing a video like this, I can share mine and maybe help someone else out, and then in the comments below you can leave me what you do and what your similar things are, and if we share any of the same ones and things like that, it'll be a fun little, I don't know, I winked at you, I'm sorry, but it'll be a fun little time. So let's get into it. I want to start with Fairground rides, because I went on one yesterday and I was like, oh my god, I feel like it's and I think this is the one that's gonna really tear people, because I know other autistic people that are like me and absolutely fucking love a weird ride or a roller coaster or waltz or things like that, and I've also known other autistic people that cannot do them and it absolutely throws them off and they hate it. And I think it's one of those where you either really need to enjoy that sensory experience or you just fucking hate it. There's no in between for autistic people, and I'm one of the autistic people that fucking adores it. Being able to be put into a safe environment where you're going too fast, you're being thrown up and down, it's kind of rough and it's kind of a bit too much and it's overwhelming in the best kind of way. And I'm 26 years old and went on a fucking waltzer thing with some friends and left feeling absolute adrenaline rush. It was euphoric. It was better than drugs that I've done. It was fucking great. If I had more money, I would have been let's do it again and again and again, but I couldn't afford to. But that was a big thing for me in childhood. I was fucking up my words there, but in childhood, my parents, I had two older brothers that were 8 and 9 years older than me, so my parents quite often took us out to no they didn't, it wasn't often. Every now and again my parents could afford to take us to an amusement park as a treat. It was normally Southport, Pleasure Beach, it was a bit shit. But I would go on the same rides over and over and over. And my parents at first would be let her do it, she'll get bored of it after the fourth time. But I wouldn't. If anything, the more I do it, the more I enjoy it, because I know exactly what's going to happen. I know what's going to come, and that makes me enjoy it more, because I'm looking forward to the experience of that thing happening. Even with the one that I went on yesterday, me and my friends are a little awkward, so it took us a few turns of it happening before we actually got to get on it, because people just run and jump on it. And I was really quite glad that I actually got to see what it was doing and what happens on it, and especially it was time to music, which I fucking love. That's such a good little extra sensory part of it. But I was I definitely enjoyed it more because I knew what it was going to do and I knew how it was going to go, and it was fucking great. And it needs to be a more common thing for me. I think I need to go to more amusement parks and all fun fairs and shit. That being said, they also make me really fucking anxious, because I'm convinced that there is not enough health and safety and I'm probably going to die on one of these things. The one I went on yesterday, I did really enjoy, but there was the last few minutes where, see, I think that's a big thing as well, is the first, it didn't last very long, but the last 2 minutes, maybe not even that, it could have been 30 fucking seconds, I have no grasp of time, but the very last little part of it before it ended was when I suddenly got overwhelming anxiety and just sort of sat there holding on for a minute, because it was literally a shoulder thing with a seatbelt, car seatbelt bit between your legs, and I was yeah, if that goes, I'm just gonna fly out of here. I'll be gone, I'll get yeeted. It scared me for a moment. But I think it's that thing of like, something can be like a proper nice sensory thing until it just suddenly isn't. And if a ride lasts a little bit too long or doesn't quite do the thing I need it to, it does completely put me off and I hate it. Like, there were many a roller coaster I went on with my brothers as a kid where like I didn't realise there'd be a loop or like something else, and my brothers thought it was funny to not tell me about things like that. So I'd be like heaving with sobs while they laughed at me because I was like, this is just too much. And my parents would be like, but you love roller coasters. And no one understood that it was like a big sensory thing. And I've spent so long talking about this, I'm sorry, let's move on to the next thing. Which is eating and drinking. This is probably one of the first things that I realised was like a big sensory seeking behaviour for me. And that's largely because like I grew up as like the fat kid, and it took me a very long time to get to a point where I'm like an average weight, I guess. And I saw a TikTok the other day from a lady who was talking about the fact that she had started being able to actively like healthily lose weight after receiving her ADHD diagnosis, because she could like understand how her like neurodivergency impacted her relationship with food and eating and the like. And it wasn't such like a direct brain connection for me, but I did actually start predominantly losing weight after I'd been diagnosed autistic. And I think that it's because like to some point, to some degree subconsciously, I was more so able to recognise like, I'm not hungry, I have eaten recently, you know, like I don't really feel hunger anyway, we've talked about that, but I was able to better register like, oh, I ate like an hour ago so I don't need to eat now, I'm looking for something to do. And like my parents often accused me in childhood of eating because you're bored, and it could be argued that it is that because I'm looking for like a sensory input, but sometimes it's not that I'm bored. Sometimes it's just that like whatever I'm doing or whatever I'm up to like needs the extra sensory experience of having something to eat or drink with it, you know? And especially when it comes to like things like fizzy sweets and like sour things, they're the things I go for. Like I know that's like, and again, I think any sensory thing when it comes to like being autistic or neurodivergent and sensory stuff, it's very hyper, isn't it? Like it's one end of the scale or the other. You either do one or the other. Like there's a TikTok that I made about how like autistics just always drink a carbonated thing, and I've gotten like so many comments from people like, actually I exclusively drink water. I'm like, that's autism too, honey. Like I quite often go for like very sour and like very flavourful things. Like I've always really enjoyed like olives and things like that as well, you know. And it's not always just that I'm bored, it's not always just that like I was a fat kid that wanted to eat, you know. The way that like food and drink makes me feel is like, if it's just a meal, if it's just like I know that I haven't eaten today so I need to eat something now, it doesn't have like the same effects in like a sensory realm as when like I'm gonna sit down and watch a movie, so I'm getting myself my snacks and I've got to set my snacks up in the right way and everything's got to be just right and they're gonna taste amazing. And at some point my snacks will change because they stop tasting so good, you know. Like there's a whole experience to it that isn't just about being bored or just about liking food. It's this like really sensory, really like food can bring me so much joy, and like especially preparing it, like not even in the way of like I'm not a chef by any stretch. I'm talking like literally like putting like crisps in a bowl and like making sure my drinks are in my, because I will have multiple drinks. I'll have like my fizzy drink in my cup and then like a still cold drink sometimes, and making sure everything's like in the right cups and things like that. Like it's a whole sensory experience that's way beyond just eating, and it's really enjoyable and I really enjoy it. And it's massive with drinks for me. Like I love Pepsi and Pepsi Max Lime currently. Pepsi Max anyway, not normal Pepsi, ew. Pepsi Max and Pepsi Max Lime are like my current drinks. And it's just like the bubbles on your tongue and the way that they taste, and like just, it's such an experience to drink it, you know? And I also realised that a big sensory seeking experience for me is like washing and bathing and showering, because a lot of the time I don't want to shower or get in the bath or whatever because it's not a pleasant sensory thing for me, like going from dry to wet to dry again and all the temperature changes and the noise of water, and a lot of the time I really don't enjoy it. And then every now and again when I've come back from some parties that haven't gone so well, or hanging out with friends where it's been like kind of boring or whatever, like where I built myself up to have to like deal with something overwhelming, something that's a bit much for me. I've built myself up so that it wouldn't be overwhelming and it wouldn't be too much, and then it turns out I didn't need to build myself up like that anyway. It feels like I'm still waiting for the thing, like I need something to happen. And the big way of like seeking that sensory input and being able to like re-regulate myself, I will like have a bath or a shower and feel so much better. And that's rare for me because a lot of the time it makes me feel worse. But in those types of situations, it really fucking re-regulates my system. And the fact that it's like almost too much of a sensory experience is what I need. It's what needs to like go and fill that hole of the thing that I've created. And it is again the whole thing of like, I very much have a routine to it. Like, it blew my mind when I found out that people will get into the shower and like wash their hair and body in different orders and not shower in the exact same way every single time. Like, I can't do that. It needs to be the same. But like, it can just be a very satisfying thing to do when I need it. And like, not only in the way of like it feels cleaner, obviously, like we all have the time where it's like we've been sat in the park all day and you just need to feel clean, but it's the entire experience of it having to like fill the whole of like, I've been waiting to be overwhelmed, and this is going to overwhelm me a little bit in a way that means I'm no longer waiting to be overwhelmed so I can resettle. And it's a bit odd, but it's helpful. And baths are a little different though, because I do a lot of just sitting in the bath, just sort of like rocking or swaying, and I really like how the water moves and it just makes me feel very good. And it's, I suppose to some degree it is just a stim, but it's also like the sensory experience of having the water all around you, and I have to have it like burning hot the entire bath. I can't let it go cold. But that was one that I literally clocked onto yesterday, because I've watched the first like 3 episodes of that show that David Tennant and Jessica Hines, Daisy from Space did, where their parents are a little girl that's like very clearly autistic. And there's a whole rigmarole in one of the episodes where like they're trying to like figure out how to bath the little girl and she keeps making a mess and it's a whole thing. And I was like, oh shit, that was like, that's what I did as a kid. I would like, even now I use too many fucking bubbles for sure. I like a bubble bath. But especially as a kid when I didn't have like the understanding of the consequence of having to clean the mess up myself and shit, I would just fill that fucking bath up with like shower gels, shampoo, like anything that would make a bubble went in there. And I just adored the sensory experience of it, and I still do, but I don't do it in the same way. And it was really quite validating to watch something where like a little kid with like high level support needs was doing what I did as a kid. And obviously like I could speak and I got told off for it and was like different to her, but it was still very like, I see that, I get you, I know what's happening here, I feel like that too, I can just articulate it a bit more. And finally is one that I'm going with loud music / and stim dancing, because sometimes I just do music in my house. Most days at some point I will put loud music on my housemate's speaker that I need him to leave around for me more often. I need to buy my own speaker. It's nothing to do with him having to do anything. I need to buy a fucking speaker so that I can put on my own loud music and do my own little shit dancing, and it regulates everything. It gets me ready to do stuff, and it does all sorts for me. I really adore it. We've talked about that before. But I want to talk specifically about like loud music in like venues and gigs and events, because sometimes I fucking hate it. Sometimes I just need it all to be fucking turned off, especially when it's like restaurants and small bars and stuff and they're just playing music. That does my head in. Like, I'm trying to chat with friends, turn it the fuck down. However, when it's live music, when somebody is like actively playing the instruments, when the music is being created, like not even necessarily instruments, because I've seen a DJ, but you know, like when it's not just a dude with a playlist or the radio or whatever, like when it's music being performed, the louder the better. I love it. I want to feel it. The fact that you can feel it like in your bones is everything. Like, I've seen Foo Fighters twice, and they're the band that I've been closest to the front for, because I waited like 10 hours outside. Like, I was on the barrier right in front of the giant wall of speakers, and it totally fucks up my hearing sometimes, and it gets like all wavy and it puts me off. But it's worth it for the feeling of like the vibration through into your bones and how loud it is and how it feels like it's inside your head and outside your head and all around you all at the same time. Like, that's how music's supposed to be experienced, and it's such like a great sensory thing. And the more I've experienced it, especially with like more like small local venues and local bands, the more I'm like, I want to do that like every weekend, and I can't afford it, because you've got to like get a drink, you've got to pay entrance, and like I can't do it. And I'd also have to find someone to go with me, because there's no chance I'd go on my own. But like, I want that experience so much more often. And it's not just because like I've had a good night out with friends, you know, it's like I would be happy, like if I didn't have anxiety, I would be completely down to just go to shows and just like stand at the front on my own and watch the band play and then go home without buying anything or doing anything else. But my anxiety won't let me. yeah, like, it is very much just like the sensory experience of being completely overwhelmed by the music. And like the lights as well, to be fair. I talked about in a video not that long ago, I saw a band that had like all little fairy lights behind them, and that was way too much and gave me like awful sensory issues. But when it's lots of like flashing lights and strobe lighting and like, you know, like rock band gig lighting, I guess, that not only does it actively not bother me, I really enjoy it. Like, oh, I've had some like proper experiences where like I've felt like I'm the only person in the world almost. Like the first time that I went clubbing with my friends, there was a point where like the lighting was like white and then completely cut out, and then white and completely cut out for like a good little while, like in beat to the music. I felt like I was floating. I didn't feel like I had a body. It was like, I can't explain it. It was the most like just, I don't think it's even truly like a euphoric feeling. I don't think other people would describe it as euphoric, but it's just like nothing I've ever experienced before, and it's such like a weightless, no negative feelings whatsoever kind of vibe, and it's beautiful and I want it all the time. And it doesn't happen every time I see live music, I'll give. It doesn't happen every time I hear loud music, but it happens often enough that I'm like, I can sort of seek it. I can seek it out. It's sensory seeking behaviour, and it's the end of the video. So as always, if you'd like to support me, you can become a YouTube member, you can become a Patreon subscriber, you can donate to me on Ko-fi as a one-time thing, you can subscribe to me here. That's my favourite one. That's the best option. That's the one that you should definitely do if you want to see more content from me, because I post here every Thursday and Sunday, and at some point I'll remember the days of the week that I post. However, I post daily at the minute. I've been posting like every fucking day near enough on TikTok, and I also post occasionally on Instagram and Twitter if you wanted to follow me in any of those places. But for now, that's the end of the video. That's me about to leave. So please do comment below with any of like your sensory seeking behaviours if you relate to any of these, any thoughts that you have in general. I would like to read about. I enjoy doing that. So yeah, that's all I have to say, and I can finally stop talking. So whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you're having a lovely morning, evening, day, afternoon, week, month, year, and I will see you again in a couple of days.